You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show Sci-Fi Special Edition debuting Charlton Heston, the Omega Man. I'm Rob, your host. Hosting with me tonight, again, Dr. Venkmatine on this emergency stream. How are you this evening, sir?
I am doing much better now.
We just got through talking about 1985's Life Force Space Vampires in a nutshell. Decent flick to go see and all that. And afterwards we were talking, and I kept thinking, there's something else related to vampire science fiction. And when I think science fiction, I think of none other than Charlton Heston, who's one of my personal all-time favorite actors. And so I said, you know what, we got to bounce back on here and actually talk just a little bit about this film, because to me, this is as good as it gets when you talk about ooey gooey, chewy, just love up beautiful science fiction kind of nonsense gratuitousness. The Omega Man. Have you seen this film?
I've seen it not recently, but about the last 10 years I've watched it. I mean, it's a good movie. It's definitely, I would recommend watching if you've never seen this. And if you're a fan of Charlton Heston, man, this is like pure gold.
Yeah, so to me, my background with Charlton Heston, obviously I saw a lot of films with my father and with my brother, and sometimes his family would go out and see like family type films, but it was always a treat to go out because Charlton Heston for me was, him and Humphrey Bogart were like some of the ones that really jumped off the screen when I was a kid that my father would watch. And I remember seeing Charlton Heston in so many different things. Obviously, the Ten Commandments is huge because it was played every year on TV. And at the time, with only 2-3 channels that would come in clearly, you got to see him. I remember Planet of the Apes. I saw all these films, and it had this one guy who was like 6'4", 6'5", larger than life. He had this great, warm, rich voice. He knew how to use it. This, to me, is like the template of a man's man. So when we talk about all these superheroes that are like 5'5", 150 pounds soaking wet or whatever, I just go, come on. I can believe Charlton Heston looking like an everyday guy, like a Greek god, almost kicking ass and kicking some vampires with an Uzi. I just think that's awesome. But
yeah,
man, this just brings back so many fun memories. So yes, Charlton Heston. What do you think of when you think of Charlton Heston?
Charlton Heston, I think of Ben-Hur. I think of like those movies. I think of the guy who's basically the man's man. You know, this you'd watch Clint Eastwood for his westerns, or John Wayne. You would watch Charlton Heston for the science fiction.
Yeah,
this is your guy.
Yeah, and Charlton Heston had a lot of different phases. He's been around forever. He's one of the early winners of the Chin of the Week over on the Extreme Movie Show. A little introductory type of polling that we would do to just introduce some actors and just start talking about them. So it's time we talk about Charlton Heston. So briefly, all I want to sit there and say is he's done so many great things. Love him. Some people think he's cheesy like William Shatner. I don't care. I love them both. The Omega Man, 1971. It's science fiction. It's got a nice feel to it and a nice tone. I wouldn't say it's scary. I think it's got some nice end of the world type scenes. Let's back up a little bit and just talk about science fiction in general. Back, after World War II, science fiction got super popular, but maybe not mainstream, but a big part of, communism and the Cold War and the Red Scare. You'd have like the Japanese creating Godzilla, which some people say is just, the evil Americans destroying us, and it's a symbol for it, or science gone wild. Science is a bad thing. So you'd have like giant spider and ant movies kind of with a similar type theme. But you also had somebody, without trying to get too technical here, that believed in population control. And this became a big thing to debate in the 50s and 60s about losing economics, that the world can only produce so much stuff, so therefore we should only have so many people. And so you would see this in different films, and it showed up just basically as something apocalyptic. Obviously Soylent Green, which we'll discuss later here on the Extreme Movie Show, science fiction special edition. But for now, the Omega Man, it's just basically what I would call, the science fiction part of it is that it's biological warfare. It's something scary. It's not just guns and bombs. So most of the world's population's gone. There's only maybe a couple people left. You got this guy who's a scientist living in LA by himself, and he's trying to figure out how to stay alive. And so the opening scene is just him driving around in his car, listening to some music. He's got Pimp in the Shades. He's by himself. He sees something in the window, and he pulls out the gun, and he just, and you're like, that's a pretty badass way to open a film.
I mean, not only is this a biological disaster movie, after a biological war, he's the last survivor, but it's also a psychological war with him. in the movie. You get to see as it progresses.
The internal and the external, sir. You are
Yeah.
correct.
The guy is breaking down. He's living in an apartment and he's got it barricaded. He has it set up, he's playing chess. And who's on the other side playing chess with him? Julius Caesar statue, a bust. He's got an admiral cap on it, and he talks to him every day. He's like, he talks, and he's like, "What do you know, Caesar? So you don't talk. You never talk. You don't know nothing. I've been out there. You hide in here all day."
Yeah, and it's cool because what happens is he ends up he's like shopping around or something, drive around, because in the day he has to go get what supplies he need, and he has to bring it back to his compound and get it all set up, because at night these people that have been infected with this virus, they're kind of like vampires in a way where they're going to kill you. They're out for him and they know who he is, so he thinks he sees somebody moving around. And this is where things get interesting, because it's like, oh, if you twist your ankle or sun starts setting, how far away do you get? You do stay from your place. What's going on? And Charlton Heston, the man can just flat out talk or whatever, but he gets captured. He's supposed to get burned at the stake. I think it's in Dodger Stadium, so baseball stadium there. And a couple of people help rescue him. And so this is kind of like, is he really dead? Now he's in heaven. Now he has something to live for. So some people might say there's like a metaphysical type of philosophical argument to have in there. What gives you purpose? What gives you clarity to get through it? But being a scientist helps. So he knows that there's something worth looking for. But he starts working on the serum.
And that little Uzi or minigun he's got, man, that's just badass. Get out of it. And this instruction it does.
Yeah, Christy Miller saying who's very pretty in his younger days. Yeah, I think the greatest story ever told, Christy, is one of his earlier films about the circus, I'll say Barnum and Bailey, which I thought was based here in Florida, Pensacola, which I think actually just went out of business a couple years ago, maybe, if I thinking of it's correct. Yeah, I thought he was larger in life, and I thought he was handsome. I thought he looked like a man, not a boy, not a child. And with his voice and his projection, that's how he always felt to me. And Eric Breen, of course, is saying Touch of Evil, the Orson Welles thing, where it has one of those huge long crane shots at the beginning, and it's a detective, and he's got the mustache. Charlton Heston story time. I'm really marking out for him, so I'm rambling here a bit.
No, it's okay.
Back in the 90s, here in Central Florida, Charlton Heston kind of had a resurgence a little bit in the 90s. He was the only guy Arnold Schwarzenegger said that if you put him on film, would be intimidating, that would be believable, that you could have him chewing Arnold an asshole, and you'd be like, yeah, this guy really does it. So he does that in an Arnold film. Do you know what film that is, sir?
I'm trying to think, as he's been in a couple of other movies.
Got an eye patch. True Lies.
True Lies, yeah.
He's the commander. He's like, Dad, you want things are and just barking at him for like a second.
Yeah, now that you mention, I actually remember that now, because it's been a while since I watched True Lies. The only thing you remember from True Lies is get the chopper, and it's like, and then the plane.
He was also in, I think it was the second movie with the Austin Powers guy, Mike Myers.
Oh yeah.
Where he says, hey, excuse me, can I get somebody in here to act? And they bring Charlton Heston talking about meeting a girl like on Cherry Street or Elm Street or something. Yeah. It's a really nice clip. But the thing with Charlton Heston in the 90s I was referring to is he had a little bit of resurgence. He was definitely a political guy. He's what you would call old school conservative, not the kind of conservative that became popular in the 80s and 90s. It's a different kind. And he had Into the Arena was his biography that he wrote. He actually went on speaking tours talking about it. And I actually saw him speak a few times here at one of the local universities. And it was interesting because he got up there, and this is a guy that knows how to talk. He's been talking in front of people for 30, 40 years. And he gets up there and he's talking, and everyone's real nice and polite with him and really quiet. And somebody asked him a question. He says, yeah, that's the thing about talking. It's just that when a director would ask you to say something and he says, well, Charlton, can you say it this way? And well, of course, I'm an actor. I'm trained to do that. And then I would begin to talk like, and he would just, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's oozing so much talent. I mean, it was just a joy to hear him speak. But the issue with Charlton, even though regardless of whether your politics lean for or against the NRA and him being the host of it, he was starting to have dementia. So he was starting to keep a lot of his public appearances private, not doing nearly as many, and he tried to keep it quiet for his old age. But that being said, I know somebody personally that met him at Universal Studios and gave him a tour, the behind the scenes tour, right?
Yeah.
And said, this person was saying, Rob, I got to tell you, Charlton was the most politest, most wonderful gentleman out of all the tours I've met. I've met some really nice guys, some weirdos, some creeps, some losers, the whole 9 yards. And this person told me, Charlton came up to him, looked at me, kind of lifted his head up a little bit, tilted it, shook his hand, said, "Son, I'm ready to see the park." I'm like, I could just see Charlton saying that to this tour guide that I know at Universal Studios. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's based on I Am Legend. Christy, we're talking a little bit about sci-fi. I was marking out for it the book. It's probably obviously watered down and some things have been changed just to make it a film. But man, when we talk science fiction, like we just got through talking about Life Force, wanted to add something to it because we'll be doing much more science fiction, much more horror, and much more Charlton Heston on this channel. But as far as the movie goes, Doctor, let me ask you this. I know it's been a little while since you've seen it, but you definitely clearly remember. What are some scenes that pop out to you that you thought were really cool?
Well, the scenes where he's first driving now, he's freaking out because he's remember he thinks he's seeing these people because they like to hide in the shadows. So
Right.
he's going nuts. Not only that, he has experimental vaccine inside him, that he injected himself with. That makes him immune. So there might be side effects you don't know. But I mean, he's very paranoid. He's talking to the Julius Caesar statue, and that just blew my mind when I saw that. It's like, this is just like Charlton Heston for a good solid 20 minutes by himself.
Yeah.
Then you see him where he's driving down again, getting more supplies. You see the phone start ringing. Oh, he's looking, and then he basically grabs his head and he screaming. He's like, "There are no phones ringing!" And then all of a sudden it goes quiet.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask Englentine just joined here. I want to ask him, what are your favorite parts of this movie?
The Omega Man, Charlton Heston. Is he in channel there? Let me check.
He's in the chat.
Hey.
There you go. Now we hear you.
Okay, now you hear me?
Right there. Now we hear you. Yes,
okay,
sir.
Cool. I love the film. I am thinking, wow, what do I remember of it? Because this is a movie I wish I could have visited again.
Sure.
It's been a long time. I just got back from hanging out with the family. I don't get to see them very often, so I jump at every chance.
Understood.
And I just remembered one. I did like this a lot better than the Vincent Price, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember the scene he's talking about where he just goes, where he's kind of losing it. And because I appreciate those scenes because not a lot of isolationist movies really touch upon the fact that you're going to go insane.
Yes.
You're going to create noises for yourself. It's just, that's one of those things. It's one of the things I always said would be a problem with anybody from modern day going back in time to even 100 years ago, where you don't have all the air conditioner noise, the refrigerator, the light humming, the radio waves, the cars passing by, all this ambient noise. And I definitely like the way they handled that. I did have a problem with the 1970s groovy zombies, because they did kind of speak in a 1970s slang that just sort of that brought me out of it a little bit.
It does break the air of believability there too. So it's definitely a dated film in that regard.
Yes.
In that regard, yes. It's still an entertaining film. It's still an enjoyable film. The girl there, what's her name? The black girl that is just 10 times hot.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking that Rosalind Cash.
Yes,
I just looked it up. Rosalind Cash. I remember that she was a coming of age young lady to me, because this is one of those movies that showed up on HBO very soon. Mm-hmm. Once we got it, that and Roller Boogie were played on a loop for a while.
Yeah,
and I remember seeing this for quite a few times.
This is a Walter Seltzer production, who also did his other movies. He did Soylent Green.
Yes.
And I believe pretty majority of his movies. I don't know if he did the other ones as far as he did Soylent Green, Omega Man, and he did a couple Will Penny, Skyjacked, Naked Edge. So
Charlton Heston would tell you that he thinks Will Penny's probably one of his favorite films, and it's a very family oriented type movie to watch around the holidays or something, or just to watch in general. Yeah, right before you popped on, he had just obviously did Life Force and touched on that, but then we were talking. I was like, we wanted to have a separate stream for maybe sci-fi. I was fiddling around with it, and I just it popped in my head. Oh my God, we got on here and just talk about Omega Man for a few minutes. I hadn't seen it in a while myself, but not Life Force kind of reminded me of it. And so we talked about some of the pluses of Life Force and how it's underrated in some areas and how it's a British film. Horror Express Fragminion brought up, which I thought was fantastic. So I was definitely vibing on the vampire stuff. So for me, I just geeked out explaining a little bit about sci-fi and what was going on with Charlton Heston and how much he meant to me as an actor. But let's take a little bit, guys, and just compare is the wrong word here. Will Smith, they had their version of this.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a Will Smith fan at all.
Right.
I think very little of him. That being said, I kind of didn't mind his movie. I mean, I still have fondness for the Charlton Heston one, but what did you make of the remake, so to speak?
I am like a lot of people. I liked it up until the end. It was given a false ending because the studio, it's Warner Brothers Studio, stepped in, as they often do with Warner Brothers, and kind of messed it up. It had an ending where, of course, it just realized this next evolution of humanity. They're not the monsters. He thought he was the hero going out and, of course, experimenting on the monsters, trying to find a cure for humanity, when this is just a next evolution of them. And you find out that they do feel emotions. They do care for each other. And it was such in the eyes of Warner Brothers, it was such a downer ending. They changed it to a more action hero kind of ending, and it kind of messed it up. But everything leading up to that moment, I liked. And they do touch upon what loneliness can do to you as well in that movie. I liked it. I really did. Like I said, right up until the very ending.
What about you, Doctor?
I will say this. So I agree with E about the ending. It was kind of felt cheesy, and like you just got let down as you're watching. Spend whatever an hour and 12 minutes into this. But the zombies though, I call them zombies because they were more like zombies. They didn't necessarily eat you, but they looked like they were going to. If you got in their midst, they didn't look civilized at first.
Yeah, well, they played off the darkness and light part of the vampirism than even Vincent Price's or Omega Man did. A lot more, to the point where, if you dragged one into the sun, they were writhing, screaming. The problem is the same problem as a lot of late 90s, early 2000 movies when it comes to CGI. It just wasn't that good.
Yep.
And now it really stands out that it wasn't that good.
Yeah, for me, this is one of the first movies I saw where with CGI that I saw what they were trying to do. Agreed, it wasn't probably obviously as good as they could do it now. But I liked what they had to do. But here's the thing. I thought it was good enough where as I was watching it and I was watching Will Smith's performance, especially with the dog in there, Christy Miller saying in chat, absolutely gorgeous, the German Shepherd, my God, one of the most beautiful animals on the planet. You could, to me, what was successful about the movie to me is I liked the fact that it was in New York City, but I liked how I got the same feeling in this film that I got in the original Omega Man about the loneliness, the desperation, all that stuff. And I actually thought when Will Smith's not talking, I actually didn't mind him. I hate his crying face look is really what it is. But he's got some talent. And I think that, again, you guys said everything about the ending. I kind of liked it, but
really,
I did not think it was that bad. And it surprised me too, because for me, I'm like, again, never Will Smith fan for the most part, but just, it was what you had mentioned about a movie a couple streams ago about updating it, where it really is not that bad. Like I was really wanting to see it, but I was really mad because, oh my God, how dare Will Smith, a black guy, and all these people CGI and redo something that, Charlton Heston was in. It was one of the first movies. Again, this is over 20 years ago, or about 20 years ago, where they started doing this a lot. And I thought it was semi-successful. in a way, I almost would like to see it again, because to see that kind of isolation, and to your point where he's the monster and you're dealing with the human element, which is a science fiction thing, you're being alone, that's the real deal stuff. And that's where a movie can get fantastic. I've always said sci-fi is done well. It can be the best vehicle for any type of story that there is, love, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it definitely has some legs. And I'm wondering if we're going to see a remake of it at some point.
I'm pretty sure it's just one of those stories that pop up every so often. They're going to remember it, and Will Smith, it's been 20 years, so the shine off of the Will Smith is going to come off, and yeah, they'll redo it.
I gotta say though, I love these types of scenarios where you're like the last person and you were alone, so you never get to see those movies as much. So when I Am Legend came around Will Smith, I was like, I'll give it a shot,
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was, it was decent. But I still love Charlton Heston one more. That's just the whole telephone thing where he's going crazy, and then he meets Rosalind Cash, and he thinks that you're not real, you're make believe, and then she basically hits him with the gun.
Yeah, and I was lamenting too. Yeah, I don't know how much you heard, but Charlton Heston, is one of my favorite actors, of all time. And to me, physically he's large. His delivery, his presence is larger than life. This is what I think of when I go, there's no Charlton Heston today. There's nobody that could come back and play, Moses or anything. And I know that he said before his brain got really bad, where he said, I'm still an actor. He goes, I'm older, I'm more experienced. He goes, if somebody asked me to do it, I'd consider it, because, he's the religious aspect of, say, doing Moses. He goes, you know what? And then in that Charlton Heston style, he said, I'd be even better at it now. And I'm like, God dang it, pay the man his money. Somebody do it, please.
There's a scene in Wayne's World 2.
Yes.
Where they have an actor and he's flubbing the lines. He gets, can we get somebody better to do it? And it really does show you, and I've said this about a couple of actors, where it shows you people who can read a line or even act, and then people who make acting an art form. Because the guy comes up and he didn't do it as well, but he did it well enough that it would have been passable. But they'd make the joke, can we get somebody, I know it's a bit part, but can we get somebody who could really give this some weight? And Charlton Heston comes in, and you realize, okay, yeah, that's the difference between acting and making acting an art form. And Charlton Heston was one of the people who could do that.
Man, yeah, this movie, there's such a great run of sci-fi films like this from the late 60s, early 70s that are their own pocket, where I think a lot of filmmakers really tried to capture the original intent of, say, whatever book or story that they came from. And I think that obviously by the time we got into the 80s, for the most part, got watered down. And by the time Life Force came out, basically what I had said was that decent film, not too deep, certainly not as deep as the Omega Man in terms of story, but it's aged well. The nudity in it's effective. It's not gratuitous. It's not stupid. It's not like a slasher film. I thought it was an underrated film. I just, as a teenager, wish I knew it was either science fiction or horror or what. And I think probably by the mid 80s is actually the Life Force moment, where you can sit there and say, this is where sci-fi pretty much died, because there's almost no good science fiction after that.
Well, I don't know about if there's no good. I can understand why you might think that it's harder to find, but I wouldn't go so far to say no good. I do know, 70s were just a period of experimentation, because people started getting away from the studio system in the 60s, and they were kind of really let loose.
Yes.
During the 70s. I mean, it's hard to think of now because it's become so mainstream, but even Star Wars was experimental at the time. That's just one of the things that the 70s has going for it. You had people trying more with camera angles. You had people trying more with what film can be, not only as a storytelling, as far as scripts and so forth, but how they move the camera. I mean, watch for something just simple. Watch the French Connection's car chase.
Yeah, fantastic.
Incredible car chase. Most of it with the camera on the dash, and it's a harrowing car chase, because a lot of they didn't have permission. So a lot of the people you see passing by are just normal people who are really in danger, and they don't know it.
I think for me, pretty much my last comment on the Omega Man in general is just that what makes me chuckle is the trailer just captures it for me. You got this guy driving around in a cool car, checking out, listening to his tunes. He's rocking the aviators, and then, like I say, he sees some movement and he stops and he pulls out the gun and he just starts shooting. And I'm like, that's Charlton Heston, and Charlton Heston trying to be funky in the '70s? Are you kidding me? Is he hip? And I'm like, it works for me. That's a must see.
You want if later sometime you want to talk about a 1970s sci-fi, I'd seen Logan's Run recently, and yeah, I like that one. That would definitely be worth it.
I'll just say this: the way this ends, though, even though he dies at the end, he still
Spoilers.
Well, it shares it with the I Am Legend one with Will Smith. So it's for a different reason, though. He ends up getting mortally wounded. He gives a flask of blood serum, and then just to help out the people. But I'll say this about the people. I think you were kind of touching a little bit earlier, E.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the fact they're albino.
Yeah,
it just seemed too hokey for me. So I mean,
yeah, I can see that.
If they would have been more like not like zombie, but more like not as white, I'd say. You can still do vampire movies where they don't look like they're like powder. But this is the '70s; they're limited to. As I said, they're experimenting. Because you had all those movies like Logan's Run and all the different stuff coming out. They're experimenting with special effects. But I'd still recommend this movie, dude.
So what you're saying is white people suck.
Well, these are like super white people. This is
if they're talcum powder babies, don't hold that against them.
But would you say this movie is extreme?
Oh hell yeah!
Yes.
Oh yeah! Are you kidding? Nothing says extreme like Charlton Heston.
I'm just trying to beat you guys and saying extreme.
Any final thoughts there?
Mighty hand. Yeah. No, I'm good. I think this is a decent sci-fi film, but I hadn't seen it in so long. I can't really speak to the details.
Well, we just wanted to touch on it briefly. We'll discuss that offline. But what we did say on Life Force, and maybe you might want to comment on this, is the fact that officially now, because we've been off and on run around today, we've hit the 100 subscribers. Obviously, wanted to say thank you to everybody for that, especially Christy. I know she's been doing a lot of tweeting and everything else there too. She's in channel as well. Fragwell, get your hands off me, you damn dirty vampire. No, put your hands on me, you sexy little black thing. I mean, that's probably what Charlton's saying. But yeah, pretty excited about it. She is. Pretty excited about all the different stuff that we've got going on for it too. So again, when we hit Life Force, I was just thinking, got to talk a little bit about Heston because he could be his own channel, but as well as just science fiction and all that. Want to just put this on out there too. So yeah, now we're up to 5 people, so that's pretty good. I just last minute kind of thing here, but Charlton Heston's the man. I mean, I love me some Tom Cruise, but step aside, Charlton's coming in, buddy.
Repent and ye shall be redeemed.
we got a Frank Minion in the channel.
I haven't done that. I used to do that impersonation a lot when we were kids. I lost it a little. I think that's the first time I've tried that in like a decade. But that was my Charlton Heston as Moses impersonation I used to do when we were kids. Repent and ye shall be redeemed. And now it just sounds like that freaking minor. I haven't done it in a decade. I gotta fix it. Listen to it again.
Well, that's the one that Jim Carrey rips off whenever he does Heston.
Yeah.
Repent. And because you have to breathe and you have to pause a lot. It's not staccato like Shatner. It's repent and ye shall not die. It's just fun talking like Heston and trying to. Well, I need a Heston soundboard now. I'm gonna go look for that.
Ye shall be redeemed. Yeah. Okay. I'll listen to the Moses thing again and get that back.
Anything going on over at the extremely vibrant I Love Comics channel? Or the Homegrown Tourist?
Tonight we are going to be doing a live stream, and we are going to be talking about everything that has been going on at SDCC. And over at the Homegrown Tourist, I'm about to lose my freaking cool on a whole bunch of people that are bringing racism into my comment section.
Mm-hmm.
including a lot of people who don't understand that when I said, you come down to Florida, I was relating stories about myself because I did this video on this fight that happened in Disneyland. And then in the middle of it, I started telling stories about what happened and what I've seen in Florida. So I said, when you come down to Florida, I'm going to get a lot of dumbasses who haven't actually listened to what I was saying, who go, Disneyland's in California. Yeah, no shit. I've been going to freaking Disney World for 50 fucking years. I know where Disney World and Disneyland are. Thank you very much, you fucking Minzer. But whatever, remember? I just ruined my fucking insult. But yeah, that's what I mean. That pisses me off. It really does. Like, don't assume things about me. Seriously. If I need you to have a piece of information, I will literally say this piece of information. That just ticks me off when people do that. I don't know. Because on one, they're trying to be intelligent and try to that one up get you thing, but you're a dumbass because you didn't listen to the video, or otherwise you would have known what I was talking about. That just ticks me off.
There's always one guy on the stream makes a comment and he's never even seen not even a clip of it. He just goes on there because he's gonna be it's 15 seconds of fame apparently. I don't know. I mean that's what it is, or maybe you just want to be a troll. Or they personally know you, but
well, yeah, that's the way it is. It's like I had a couple of people on the I Love Comics channel. They got mad because we talked about. I was talking about the new comic book skeptics, and of course that means we talk about the the Ethan Van Sciver thing, and people come on. Oh, I can't believe you said that! And start insulting me, and I'm like, dude, you can't do that. So be entertaining. You gotta be funny.
I expected the backlash, you know.
Of course.
That's why I was kind though. I could have said worse things, but you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Well, they make our point.
Yeah.
But that's what's going over on the other channels.
Good to hear.
On this channel, however, Dalton and I are going to be doing preview. We're going to be going over some trailers like we did with Top Gun and we did with It Part 2. There's so many trailers that are coming out at SDCC, so we're going to be doing that here as much as possible, just going over them, talking about them. Are you excited? Are you not excited? Does this look good, or is it going to be cheesy? Which, by the way, speaking of cheesy, my non-comic book collecting wife today heard that they were going to make Jane Foster Thor, and she goes, well, that's stupid. I loved her saying that. First of all, she hates the name Love and Thunder, and then she heard that it was Jane Foster. She goes, well, that's stupid, and then I don't want to see that. I want to see Thor.
They should have called it Rolling Thunder.
There you go.
Much better title.
Yeah,
there ain't much loving going on from the fans.
Yeah. So there you go. That's what we have planned so far.
Nice. It's always nice to know that Dalton will give us 3 cents worth when it comes to a trailer or anything else, and I've always liked that about Dalton because I just honestly thought that you would be a big fan of the Tom Cruise movie because I actually thought the remake looked better than the original. I thought this would be a better film. Apparently, you think it's worse. So that being said, I'll let you chew on that, sir.
Maverick versus Top Gun?
Yeah.
First of all, I told you, I'm not a huge fan of Top Gun. This one, I'm going to, for an opinion about the movie, I can only talk about the trailer. But for an opinion about the movie, I'll wait for the movie to come out. But the trailer, no, there's so much wrong with this movie.
That trailer gets you a little wet, though. I mean, it's pretty good stuff.
The Top Gun movie, we're always holding.
Once they hit danger zone, I'm just gonna go look for the Kleenex. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Okay, guys. Thanks for popping in. I know you had family commitments tonight. Doctor, thank you obviously for guesting tonight. I wanted to get Life Force because one of our fans were interested in getting that there, and we talked about doing command on this one. So we'll see what the third one's going to be, and then of course, Heston cannot be denied. I think there's zero doubt. Zero question that Charlton Heston, the Omega Man, anything Charlton Heston is, much like this channel, is Xtreme. So with that, gentlemen,
you know what else can't be denied? The movies of 1987, and that will be counted down on Tuesday, Top 10 Tuesday.
Top 10 Tuesday. Have your list posted up. I will be slamming Reddit for that. We're getting some traction off of that. If you look at the metrics, sir. I know that we've tabled the Xtreme movie metrics for now, but we've not forgotten them. We do pay attention to them, and we like dumping everything in an Excel file and looking at them. At least I do. That being said, gentlemen, let's have a good night. Yes, Omega Man 71 frag, absolutely. It's probably on something somewhere. Go watch it tonight. Don't watch anything else but the Omega Man, because like the Omega Man, we are all extreme. Have a good night. And remember, stay extreme.
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 Extreme.